Fire Department.
We got a fire at 4336 Braden Avenue. It's off of 41st. And
okay, ma'am, what's the house number again?
4336.
Okay, is everyone out of the house?
No, we're pulling people out now.
Letter 23,
Okay, is everyone out of the house?
engine 25, engine 18, letter 7, letter 22.
Okay, how many people are still in the house?
District 5.
How many are still in there? We got a woman outside.
Okay, how many people are still in the house?
House fire,
How many are still in
4336 South Braden,
They're trying to get the rest of
4336
the way
South
in to
Braden
get the
Avenue.
kids. They're around to the back.
Map page
They're trying to
1328.
In the back of the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we got a whole street line of people here.
Copy that, 835
The
responding.
girls just came out. She's all right. She's moving.
Okay. Do you know how many are in there?
Rescue, stand by to make the assignment for rescue.
Do you know how many are in there?
They're going to get ready.
We'll be past the van, fire attack. Looks like we have about approximately 2,500 square foot house. Next step in, we're going to need a line.
Doing on scene with a 2,500 square foot house, heavy smoke showing, and engine 21's fire attack. Truck 4, copy on the District 5 house first. 645, did you copy? I added rescue to this.
We got rescue 4.
Affirmative.
Ladder 23 is on scene. We'll be at South Braden Command. We have a hydrant right across the street from engine 21, so we'll go ahead and use that. Copy. Car 645 is arrived on the scene. We'll be assuming Braden Command. You have a hydrant that we can hand lay to, Troy? Affirmative. It's right across the street from engine 21. Copy. Ladder 23, assist engine 21 and fire attack. Engine 25, I want you to be search and rescue. Like it's the back porch that's on fire. We're going to make entry through the front door, but we'll probably need to come around to the back side. Copy. Fire attack. We got the back porch on fire. You're making entry through the front of the house, but you will need a company on the back side. Braden Command, engine 25. Did you copy? You'll be search and rescue. Engine 21, we need more pressure on the line. I got a lot of fire in here. We need more pressure. Copy, need more pressure on the line. Braden Command to drivers, can you straighten out that hose and give them a little more pressure? Safety Command, we're on it, Chief. Copy, you're on it. Chief, we got quite a bit of fire. Safety Command, you got fire on your engine. Fire on your engine, come back out. Pull everybody out. Copy. Jerry, what was that last transmission? Fire attacks coming out. Chief, go ahead and start additional IMSA for us. Braden Command, send me an IMSA crew for TFD 835. When you get on the scene, you're going to be in charge of EMS for TFD. Copy that. Okay, we're going to go defensive. I need exposure here on this side, north side. Jerry, if we got any crews, do we have any guys that can handle this? We pulled fire attack. Can we switch fire attack to a couple defensive things? Yeah, copy that, Chief. We're on it. We got the north side of that. Around behind us and blast us. We got the front door. Engine 21, I didn't copy your last transmission. Chief, please have to pull out of the house. Circle around. Where's the front door now? All right, but I want you to stay out of the house for right now. Chief, all our firefighters are okay.
Hello, my name is Justin Braden Ave. I'm captain on Engine 2-1, and I'm here today to talk about a house fire that we had. It was on June the 17th, 2014. This house fire, when we arrived, we come down the street. This is on Braden. Once we arrived on scene, we had smoke showing from the back of the house, and the winds that day were out of the south at about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Once I arrived on scene, I gave a brief description of the size up of the heavy smoke we had. Also, square footage of the house, I estimated around 2,500 square feet. At that time, once I got off the truck, I directed my firefighters to take an 1 3/4 pre-connect line to the front door. And at this point, I was going to go around the side of the house and do my 360. At this point, we're at the back of the house. This is where I did my 360. I came around the side. At this point, the back of the house, I see a lot of heavy fire and a lot of smoke involvement back here at this time. I made a quick visual. I seen what I had, and then I turned around and went back to the front of the house to regroup with my firefighter in the pre-connect. I knew we were going to go to the northwest corner of the house. At this point, I've completed my 360. I've come right back around to the front of the house. I've met up with my firefighter who's standing on the front porch. We have a pre-connect which we pulled off Engine 2-1. It was placed right where this truck is placed. They had the lines off. We had a hydrant right across the street, so our water supply was going to be good. Once we got here, we opened the front door, and when we opened the front door, we had heavy smoke, and it was down at least past our knees. And then we were going to proceed down the hallway and back over to the right because, again, like I said, I knew the fire was going to be in the northwest corner. Everything that I had seen from the outside was telling me that's where the fire was going to be, and that's where I instructed my firefighter to go. At this point, we made it inside the structure. My firefighter was on the line. I had 2 more firefighters assigned to me off ladder 2-3. As we proceeded in through this hallway, this opening that you'll see right here in a minute, we didn't even know it was here because the smoke was so heavy. We weren't feeling a whole lot of heat at the time. And we moved down to around here, and that's when I jumped up on a box and we punched a hole in the attic. We could see the ductwork. We were checking to make sure the fire hadn't rolled over our heads and that we were still in a manageable position to fight the fire. We came down this hallway. And once we got to this hallway, we continued on in the northwest direction, still looking for the search of the fire. At this point, we've made entry into this room. We still have heavy smoke. We can't see our hand in front of our face. The smoke is banked down. We're feeling a little more heat in this room. We progressed over to here. We saw a little bit of light, and there was still some fire on the outside of the structure. We checked again the attic overhead to make sure there wasn't any fire overhead, and there wasn't. At this point, we look back to this opening, which you'll see in just a minute. And that's where the main body of the fire was. At this point, me and my firefighter, we turned and we directed our efforts to getting over to this opening to put out the seat of the fire. We also had the other 2 firefighters from ladder 2-3 with us. At this point, myself, I'm positioned here. My firefighter with the hose line is positioned here. This entire room is filled with fire. It's pretty much in a free burning phase. It's not off-gassing hardly any smoke in here. It's all just the gases. We're spraying water. We're not making any effort to put this fire out. We had some low pressure. We had some issues with water on getting to our line. Once we got to this door, both me and my firefighter, later we talked about it, and we remember feeling a certain surge of heat, and we think at that point maybe the room behind this wall, it flashed. And because there was a lot of heavy smoke. But like I said, when we first come in the door, there wasn't a whole lot of heat. But we believe it flashed at that point. And with the door being open and the other windows open, we believe we had probably a wind-driven fire. And it lapped around behind us. And I happened to look back when we didn't have a lot of water pressure, thinking there might be a kink in the hose. And turning back and looking. And then from ceiling to floor behind us, we had an entire wall of fire. At that point, I made the decision to get everyone out. We all checked on one another, and as a team and an effort, we decided to get out of the building as quickly as possible. The 2 firefighters on Engine 2-3 went first, then myself, and I had the firefighter on the hose line with me. He grabbed the nozzle, and we proceeded to get out of the building. At this point, we've made it back to the wall. I've continued to be in constant communication with my firefighter on the nozzle to make sure that we're getting out together. The other 2 guys were ahead of us. We knew that they'd made their way out. We're making our way out. Once we did, this opening that was here earlier that I said we didn't see because of the heavy smoke, There's fire blowing out about midway up. You can see the char marks around the door frame and opening, and the fire was it was real heavy coming out here. And there was fire there, so we came through the fire and then under the fire down this hallway, which is approximately 12 feet, and we were able to get out to the door. And once I got out, I propped the door open and allowed my firefighters to sneak out behind me. And we had hose lines there, and we were able to pull the rest of the hose lines out. And then we started to begin our attack again from the front door at that point. And then we made decisions on how we were going to relocate hand lines and redeploy and attack this fire. The lessons I've learned from this fire, there are a few after we had our post-incident analysis. One, a second line in would have probably helped a lot more on getting water on the fire. And two, putting our gear on properly. After this fire, all 4 of the firefighters, we burn our helmets up, face shields, they've had to take them down. We had to get all of our gear replaced. One of the firefighters, the nozzleman, had his face piece, it was crazed over very heavily. Our gear held up very well. I'm glad everybody had their flashover hoods on and had our gloves on. Equipment is very important, and it kept guys from getting burnt. Another thing, this is for all the company officers out there and anyone that's going to be acting in a company officer role, you need to keep your head looking around at all times. Be aware of the conditions inside. Don't get so isolated and focused on the fire. If we hadn't looked around and seen what was going on, it could have turned out a lot worse. And I'm very thankful that we were all able to get out. Those are 3 of the main points that I've learned from this fire.
My name is Roger Williams. I'm the district chief for the Tulsa Fire Department. I'd like to discuss some lessons we've learned from a fire we had on South Braden Street about 4 shifts ago. What I can recollect of that day is it was a fairly normal day. We were finishing lunch, and it seemed like to me what was going to be a pretty normal fire, if there is anything that is such called a normal fire. But it was in the middle of the day. We had multiple calls. At this point, we'd arrived on scene, had some communications that the people were out of the house. Maine had radioed us and said the people were out of the house. We went ahead and signed a search and rescue crew, as we always did. So we were in the initial phases of setting up the fire when it changed so quickly. Had a very alert safety officer who notified me almost simultaneously as fire attack that it's time to get out. My safety officer said the front room is fully involved. We need to get everyone out. And again, my captain about that same time had recognized the same thing. The fire had changed dramatically, very quickly, and so he was coming out just about almost the same time. Again, I was still in early tactics phase. I hadn't even set up my initial arriving companies yet when it changed on us suddenly. So obviously we went from a offensive strategy to a defensive strategy. First in fire company again gave us a report, passed command, went in for a fire attack. Second company arrived and set up command. I almost within seconds arrived behind him and assigned him to assist in fire attack. So I have 2 companies on fire attack inside this structure. Normal square footage house, approximately, I don't know, 2,200 square feet approximately. I think the first in company gave us a report of 2,500, but I think it's about 2,200 square foot story house. So I'm thinking, you know, with 2 lines that we'll get this fire put out quick. Assigned search and rescue. And then with my 4th company, what I did is assign them to exposures because we did have a hard wind, very strong winds blowing the fire. It was coming out of the eaves on the north end of the house, so it was starting to make an exposure to the house directly to the north of it, and it actually did burn the outside of that house fairly well. Got up in the eaves, melted windows, so we had a large exposure problem. In fact, we had exposure problem in the back of the house. So I assigned my 4th company to exposures, and anyway, when we pulled everyone out of the house, we went to be defensive, and we adjusted and did a good job of putting it out at that point. Very valuable lessons learned for me on this fire. One, there's never an ordinary fire. It was kind of very ironic. This is in June, and all captains' performance evaluations are due July 1st, or the end of June. And I had just finished evaluating all my captains, and what I always do is I go through the logbook and see what we've been doing over the past year, and I was amazed at the amount of fire we had fought. Multiple fires in one shift in a 24-hour period, laying lines 2 or 3 times a month. We had really fought a lot of fire over the last year, and through my evaluations, I'd given my captains some very good reviews. We'd done a really good job. I felt like, hey, we can really fight fire. And there's not really anything that we did wrong on this particular fire, but I learned that things can change so quickly that what to me was going to seem like a simple fire, again, middle of the day, multiple calls. So I'm thinking we have early recognition. So there's no such thing as an ordinary fire. The thing we didn't take into consideration was this was a wind-driven fire. The winds that day were 20 to 30 mile an hour winds, gusting up to 30 mile an hour winds. With that strong winds, it did 2 things, in my opinion. It delayed the phone calls. I think the fire did start on the outside of the structure. We had reports from interviewing the people around the fire building that they had started smelling smoke at 9:30, and we did find that the fire had actually started roughly about 9:30 that morning on the exterior, actually on the interior of the structure. The occupant of the structure thought they had the fire out. It was a trash container, I'm pretty sure, but they put it on the outside porch. Well, those large winds kept whipping the fire, and I think it was carrying off the smoke. No one really could pinpoint the smoke. Again, the neighbors said they had smelled the fire came in at 1 o'clock. The neighbors had smelt this smoke as early as 9:30 that morning. So instead of getting a large buildup of smoke, the visual that usually keys and gets the phone calls, we got a real delay, I think, in the phone in getting the fire reported. Along with that, the 30 mile an hour winds had driven the fire deeper inside the structure than we really expected. Fire on the outside of the house, we're thinking it's going to be easy. Well, it had driven the seat of the fire deep inside that structure. The other thing, the structure was loaded with combustibles. It was one of those houses, and I know as firefighters, you've been in these many times, it was just loaded to the hilt. My search and rescue team had searched one room before he came out, and he said if the rest of the house is like this, this thing is loaded, and of course it was. So numerous amount of combustibles. The fire was driven deep inside the house. Speaking about some of the lessons we learned, it's very important that you have clear understanding as a company officer of what fire attack is doing. We very often assign 2 companies as fire attack. We did on this. I have a fire attack group. I have 4 personnel in there, and I'm thinking I've got 2 hand lines in there. However, they were all just on one hand line. So through our post-incident analysis, we made sure that if there's if there's 4 people on fire attack, we either need to have a big 2.5-inch line. We need more water, because we did have some water issues on this. We only had one fire attack line with 4 personnel on it. We talked about the need, if you assign 2 companies, we now have a group, and the group leader, and they really have to communicate. Don't underestimate how much water you need in the house. In my mind, I clearly have 2 pre-connects in there. Once they get out, and I understand where the miscommunication or misunderstanding, I don't know, however you want to say it, I only had 1 pre-connect in there. So we'll be sure, and after our post-incident analysis, we made sure if we have 2 companies, we need to have 2 lines in there, or 1 big line. Should have had some more water. Another lesson I learned, very, very important, is I assigned an exposure group. First in captain went to the back of the house, said, we're going to need a company back here for exposure. The back of the house is going pretty good. I'm there shortly after him, and it's blowing out again on the north end of the house, and it's making an exposure problem to the house directly north. Just going through my tactics, my fourth in company, I assigned to exposures. We were this close from having a rapid intervention crew needing to be deployed, which I did do with my fifth company. However, I did not have my fifth company on scene yet. So I've learned once I put people in that building, I will very quickly establish a rapid intervention team. Because when you see your firefighters crawling out, and I described it to them in this post-incident analysis, the first one was smoking, the second was smokier, the third one was smokiest, and the fourth one, his helmet was on fire. His helmet was on fire. Each situation is different. Each situation needs to have a thorough 360 and a thorough thinking through really what we're going to do as far as tactics. We touched on some hard subjects in our post-incident analysis. And every time we do a post-incident analysis, I tell the guys it's time to leave your feelings aside and let's learn from this. And we learn some valuable lessons, that no fire is the same, that wind-driven fires will drive right past you if you're not careful, that even though it's in the middle of the day, you think you got an early detection call. We did not have an early detection call on this. We had a house that was just loaded with combustibles and a deep-seated fire. So the situation, the way it appeared to us at first, was not what happened once we got inside there. Never treat any fire as normal. Do a very thorough 360. Take that minute to analyze what you're getting ready to crawl into. When I was a captain, and I thought I could put out a whole house fire with a booster line, and I know that sometimes that's our attitude, but always make sure you have plenty of water when you go inside with you. And make sure you get a rapid intervention team established early on. And make sure you train and prepare, because one thing that did help was our training. Good, strong captain. When the fire flashed behind them, I'm not sure if it flashed, but it was driven behind them. Got all the crews together, told them what I was going to do, and they all exited the structure together. The accountability was there. The gear was on. We got very good gear in Tulsa Fire Department, and they all had it on properly. We did some good things in here, but we learned a lot of things, and I think that's important for any firefighter. Every time you go out on scene is to learn something and get better, because just when you think you got it down, something will happen, and there's another lesson to be learned.